All right, welcome to our July edition of our Kentucky K-12 EdTech Leaders webcast. David Couch, I'm broadcasting from my vehicle on the way to Fort Moore, Georgia. Our oldest son is graduating from the U.S. Army Cavalry course he took for 5 months. So did some pre-recording of some things, and I got a barking dog in the back seat that could go meltdown anytime. So just a heads up. We're dealing with that. Actually, I'm sitting in the Buc-ee's parking lot outside Richmond, waiting for some people to come back. But wanted to go forth with the webcast. Sent you the agenda, and we have two recorded segments because I wasn't so sure as I was traveling, although we're sitting here, how good the cell reception would be. So you'll see those as we go through here, the pre-recorded ones that I did actually late last night. We have the Go Soapbox questions that should be up and available. And once again, thanks for this, for joining us here in July. And this, obviously, we'll have a recording of this webcast and the written summary that we put available next month. So let's start out. Megan, if you could, let's take a look at, and we'll have some time for questions for the school year 23-24 KETS operational plan. If you could just start showing that video.
Thanks for joining us this morning. I am actually recording this on Monday night. I'll be traveling to Georgia. Our oldest son has something he's graduating from at a U.S. Army military base in Georgia, and so our family's going to go down there and celebrate with him. And I didn't know how my cell coverage would be as I'm traveling the 8-hour drive down there this morning. So I recorded it, and if I can join live, I'll join that way, but I'll still show you this recording. So we have two things we're going to share with you this morning. One is our annual operational budget, our Kentucky Education Technology System operational budget that goes before our Kentucky Board of Education every year. It gives us an opportunity, actually, and I look forward to it, a way to educate our Kentucky Board of Education on the state of education technology. And so within this presentation, we also give them an update on our infographic, which is the data that's collected from districts every year through our digital readiness, and a variety of other methods that we collect it, and gives them kind of a snapshot of just not the technology side, but the people side as well. We update our KETS timeline every year because typically in that presentation, they ask them general education technology questions. And so we take advantage of that opportunity to educate them on where we've been and where we're going. But also we take the opportunity to share with them the budget situation that's associated with education technology. So I'm going to share one of those two of the documents that we're planning on presenting. So this is our staff note, and much like you all have to do with your board, we have to in advance get a little write-up about what we're talking about with our board, and this is a good document to just talk from. With all the money sources that we identify, in essence, really our Kentucky Board of Education only has to approve a very small part of it. But I found over the years, since 1992, they're interested in the boards have always been interested in the bigger picture of amount of money, regardless of funding source, federal, state, or local, that goes toward education technology. And so Kentucky is well positioned in the United States to give the best picture to its board and to anyone else about, in a very transparent way, the amount of money that's available for education technology. And so you see a summary that's going to the board here. The board already approved $366 million of need, and this was back when they approved the 2018 to 2024 KETS master plan. And then every year we show them the amount of money that we have that goes toward that need. Now, as you go down in this statement, this line here, we've identified that there's $15.4 million that can go toward that. but there's another there's another 476 million that go toward that as well. So obviously, that easily addresses the 366 million. And the way I describe it is, it hits upon some massive underfunding for years, and I have a chart that shows that it's been underfunded, typically 150 million dollars at least for many years, especially before the COVID money became available. And and so this is a good way to kind of show them about, yes, it's catching up some, but as we know, at the end of September 2024, we go back to the normal funding streams that were in the history, as that's been tremendously underfunded during that time. So obviously, we recommend to the commissioner recommends to the board they approve the 15.4 while they're being educated on this other 476 million. And we always remind them they don't have to approve the 476 million. We're just making them aware of it. Now, the background is what we've been talking about. Is there's been a large influx of one-time federal money that you all are very well aware of, and I would say this is, we have some new people that are watching this in districts along with our staff, and this gives you a pretty good, especially if you're new, kind of how the money works. But also, this is a good reminder to folks if you've been around even for a few years or a lot of years about how the money works and how it's available. If you take a look at the past 8 years, and this is when obviously the COVID money started happening. But if you go prior to that time, you can see we were far below either 100 or 150 million dollars below that 366 million of basic unmet need. So this is a reminder to folks that that we're below it. We've had some cuts in the KETS funding since 2010 from 19.5, which was established in 1992. Now we're down to 15.4, and within this document, we always take the opportunity to educate the board on the need for more funding in education technology and to make it a priority in their budget requests for the upcoming legislative session. And so the budget, usually the board sets their priority for their goals, their top 5 or top 10 in the August-September timeframe. So we always take that opportunity to educate our board members on the funding that's needed on the ongoing basis. And while absolutely the funding is excellent last year, it's the biggest it was ever, 502 million. It's excellent, this next school year, 591 million. If we're good at chunk of the next year, the 24-25, be pretty healthy. But when you get 25-26 is when you probably start dipping back down into this level here. So it's important to try to get ahead of the game and get the funding established that can sustain the kind of things that were put in during COVID, and even well positioning us for the next 10 years. Now, in the previous session that we see, career and technical education got some great funding, transportation, kindergarten, Kentucky School of Deaf and Blind, all happy for that. But we really want the Kentucky Education Technology System to be one of the top 5 going forward. And so we take this opportunity, and these are our talking points, not with our board, but with with the legislature as well, is bring the baseline up from 15.4 million to 30 million. And these are the types of things that it will go to just in the basics of KETS funding. We want to store the funding for the computer science information technology. It took a hit as well. We want to bring that back up. We want to help address the people side of EdTech in districts, and we talk about the importance of doing that. And out of the master plan, it's always the most underfunded kind of item that we have. And we talk about the replacement of computers over the course of time. Trying to get that reestablished. Online registration been a big success of trying to get that established as an ongoing funding source. And I think the virtual library is on here. We had to cut it before because the budget being cut, and during COVID, we reestablished that, but we could be going back to that being cut if the funding is not the funding source to keep that going is not sustained. I'm just kind of scrolling down here to things that we talked to him about. So then I'm going to hit upon just a second here some of the specifics of the budget. And obviously, this is recorded for the webcast, and you can freeze frame it anytime. It just kind of talks about the process that it goes through. So I'm going to bring this back out. Stop sharing that, and I'm going to start sharing another document that goes into specifics of the money that's allocated. So I talked about that 491 million, and this shows the breakout. So the KETS funds of 15.4. This is the breakout. The funding sources that we have. This is part of the first offer. These are shared services that we offer of Munis and our help desk and our field desk services and a lot of the other things we do that we get 30, 40, 50, 60% discounts because we're buying at the state level versus every individual district trying to do that. And then that's part of the first offer that we see here. And obviously we're trying to get this back up to just not the 19.5, which can help that first offer get higher, but bring it up to 30 million, which obviously has great impact on that first offer. So that's our top budget request is to reestablish the cuts and then position the KETS funding for the future at 30 million. So anytime you get a chance to talk to your superintendent about trying to make that a funding for KETS, just not to raise SEEK, because typically superintendents are very focused just on SEEK. And as you all know, the SEEK can be used for a variety of things. And obviously, it's important for you to be trying your best to try to get general funds that come into the district. I work very hard in the agency with our chief financial officer and our commissioners over the years. And there's a big reason that has helped contribute to us getting a large chunk of the federal money at the KD level we've done in shared services. And obviously, districts need to do that as well, and district technology staff. But it's important as you're trying to make this convincing argument to your superintendent is there's a flavor of money that needs to be dedicated toward technology, and in your all's budget, versus just the general SEEK dollars. So which way you can make that compelling argument, it's important, and just as much as you can, let them know we're trying to get the baseline back up, which helps you all directly. So this is part of the first offer that we're trying to get raised up with additional budget requests. It's called ABR. And then we go down the other funding sources. This was also cut. We're trying to get that back up to 800,000. The computer science type of things that we're doing. The second offer of assistance is 9.7. You add 9.7 to that 2.6 to get the amount of money of the offers this year. And you see here, where's that? So that'll be $12.8 million in offers that you all equally match. And then we have, interest gained, and that we used to get a lot more money from the interest gained. But that's better than zero, which was a good, healthy part of the during the pandemic. These are some of the ESSER money that ESSER 1, 2, and 3 that's still available. I think ESSER 1 ended in 2022, so we're really talking about the 2023 money that expires in September. being a possibility, and also the ones that expire up to September 2024. So that's 14.2. Also, these are the types of things that we were able to make the compelling argument for at K the agency to buy these services for school districts, and that was 27.3 million. I talked about, you know, having discussions with the commissioner, the other C levels in an organization, the chief level, whatever it is, chief information officer, chief financial officer is what I'm talking about, chief academic officer, and try to make that compelling offer for the money that can be spent on anything. We did that successfully at 27.3 million. And these are the E-rate rebate dollars that districts apply for directly. It's, you know, that's 24 million. That's a heavy chunk of money. We can see it in the requests. We think of, you know, with some pretty good confidence that a large chunk of that will be actually applied for. As you all know, with E-rate, you can apply for it, but actually don't go through with it. But we think a healthy chunk of that will be actually coming down to districts in rebates or some other method. The kin services, we get 17.3 million. That used to be up there at 18.4. That was also hit with the budget cuts, and we always remind folks over the years that we have maximized that dollar just about as well as anybody could, and we just remind them that, you know, we're doing things like raising the internet bandwidth and 260 kilobits per second to 1 megabit per second, as you're well aware of. Other funding sources that are out there beyond traditional technology is school facility for new construction and major renovations. We feel it's around $15 million. We also take a look with the program areas in KDE, and once again, Kentucky does this, if not the best, one of the very best in the country, about all the different variety of funding sources and how much of that's spending technology. I do think we have the best handle on that of the 50 states. So these are other types of funding sources coming from other offices that go toward with education technology related services for districts. It's around 13.5 million. You know, you add those all together, you know, you get, you know, 157 million. You go above that, another 334 million, you get right at 491 million. So a good chunk of money that's available, once again, in very good position for this this coming school year, but we're trying to position things for the future. So that's the KET's operational plan and budget for school year 23 and 24.
Well, thanks. And I have to take a look at Go Soapbox for me. Is there any kind of questions that popped up from Go Soapbox?
Not yet, David.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, good. The next one we'll be hitting upon is our KET's master plan, the 2024 to 2030. So let's just go ahead and start out with the KET's master plan overview.
So now I'm going to start the discussion with our 6th version of our Kentucky Education Technology System Master Plan for Education Technology, the 2024 to 2030 version of that. So I'm going to bring that up and share this with you. So hopefully you're seeing the what I'm seeing is our first page of our master plan. These are 2 young men from young boys. I should say they're not quite young men yet, from Mayfield Independent Schools. It's always fun to pick the pictures. Of course, it's from our STLP events. A lot of these pictures come from our table of contents, and much like a good lesson plan that teachers have to teach a certain specific subject, is we're just modernizing our last plan that we had, the 2018 to 2024. Felt like that was very good. It's probably the best one up to that point that we've done. And instead of just tossing everything out, starting anew, we just build upon it. This plan, the 2024-2030, definitely has some changes. But I find in the planning over the years that folks think of a plan of all the things that you got to do you haven't done, which is part of it. But I think just as important is to recognize the things that you're doing. You need to keep on doing well. And so we've always, at least the previous versions, recent versions of our master plan, identified both areas that we want to get better at, or it's just a brand new area, but also the areas it's important for us to keep on doing well, that we're already doing well. And I'll briefly go through these sections here. And I'll show you as I kind of go through it. But this table of contents, we have a summary and kind of talk about what's new in the plan and talk about the importance of just not a state plan, but the district planning that has to occur, your technology plan and how your technology plans fit within your educational plan within your district. Talk about things we do at the state level. At least we do take a look at the national plan. We take a look at even the state's educational plan. The future ready frameworks, we found that served us well in the previous version, the 5th version, and we're using it in the 6th as well. We take a look at other states, particularly states that have a statewide, they do things statewide and share services statewide. North Carolina is one of those. We take a look at Wisconsin, Delaware, are states that come to mind, Georgia as well. These are their areas of emphasis, and these are the things that, once again, that we want to keep on doing well, that we're doing well, but also the areas that we think there's growth in. We also do projected costs. The current version that we have is the 5th version, the 2018 to 2024, is $360 million, $66 million per year in technology needs of districts, and that's regardless of local funds and state funds and federal. This plan has a $430 million annual unmet need and $2.5 billion over the plan. And then we have appendices throughout here, throughout the plan. We're one of the most studied. We always want to remind folks that this program's been studied, and especially it's been fairly recent, and we point people to that versus study. And again, we have Kentucky studies and external studies that we point people to. Surveys are done, and some of those are national, some of those are state, and we point people to those. We always remind folks of the KETS timeline, for example, down here, things have happened since 1992 up to current. And if you've been around 5 or 10 years, you can see yourself in there, things you've been part of. It's not everything, obviously, that's done. It's kind of like a highlight film, but obviously doesn't capture everything you've done within the district. Just some big things that we think that are worthy of timeline. And then we do our projected costs for each year and then over the life of a 6-year plan. So it always has an executive summary talking about the major, really high level kind of goals that you have. Obviously, you can freeze frame this, and I kind of talked about that part there, what we identified. And 30th year was in 2022. It's pretty cool. Then we spent some time not recopying the entire timeline, but going over some of the really big things that have occurred over the time, if they never make it to the timeline, of just being aware of these major areas of success that we've had in different areas here. And obviously, when this is published, you can spend more time on it or just freeze frame it. And then go forward, where are some areas of emphasis that we have for the next 6 years, and really high level stuff that we have. And obviously the district goes into a lot more detail with these and beyond these areas that we've identified. And then we always, with the plans that we have, we always update it. We don't wait for 6 years before updating, particularly the studies that are done in it. And so we have some of these documents that are in there that we update over the course of time. The infographics are, these are readiness reports are. We update that along with the studies that we'll talk about in here. So we have an introduction here. Young ladies here. And there's some high level types of things that we're doing here with plans in general. And you can see the bulleted points there and just take a quick look through those. So this is about 84 pages, so obviously I'm not going to spend great deal of detail on this, but I can say that we have, much like if you take a look at the summary of last month's webcast, districts have had a couple opportunities at the summits, the CIO summits, to give us feedback, because we knew this day would come that we would be updating and modernizing the current version of it. So we've incorporated all that input and input that we've gotten in a variety of other forums to create this updated, modernized plan. Cybersecurity was important back in 2018, but it's really raised its head up to be even more important. We have added an Appendix F to this for the amount of time and energy. We talk about the new studies that are important that have been done since the 2018 that we want to highlight in here. We talked about the AI, artificial intelligence plan that recently came out from the Department of Education. But there's a variety of other ones here. That we updated our people side of education technology, the first state to do that and spend time with it. Our best practice guide for cybersecurity. We updated digital learning guidelines, and a lot of states were looking at what we had put in place, and of course our computer science report that we put in place, which has put us up there one of the national leaders. This one talks about some planning at a high level, and I think it's just important to say you're in sync with what you're trying to do educationally, just not technology-wise. And so we spend time, regardless of whatever the strategic plan for education is for KDE and the districts. There's some basic tenets you should follow and you're doing planning, and as far as it also is how technology relates to what you're doing in the planning. Say we have some key elements, and those kind of been there for the course of time since 1992. We've modernized them. And districts are familiar with the planning concept, and we lined it up with our future ready framework, what this master plan is based upon, but also that's the framework for the digital for the district's technology plans. And this is just a cycle you go through with planning. It's not a one and done. If you're smart, the plan does not just sit on a shelf. I know our master plan, we look at it throughout every year during the 6 years and find ways to modernize it and making sure it's aligned to plans. I talked about the National Education Technology Plans. We'll have a link into that in Future Ready Framework. And North Carolina had recently updated their technology plan. So we wanted to take a look at that. As I mentioned, there are probably 5 or 6 states, maybe up to 10, but really there's a core of 5 over the years that have really taken a statewide approach to doing things of equity for all their districts. So we take a close look at North Carolina over the years, but Wisconsin's doing some great areas. Areas of emphasis, these are once again lined up with the Future Ready framework, and areas of acceleration. And we used to call this area of improvement, but that's AI. We didn't want to improve, folks, so we just called growth opportunity. So if you take a look at 2018 plan, we called that areas of acceleration, AA, and then areas of improvement. But this has been renamed for obvious reasons, with AI taking such a prominent role now. And here's the leadership areas that you see. We want to keep on doing these things in blue. Well, things in green, or with the go there, is the things that we think that we can get better at. Not that we're doing poorly, but we feel like we can get better at. And we'll go down through all the gears here very quickly and just scan them here. Infrastructure and ecosystem is something that Kentucky is most of these areas we're the pioneer and national leader in it, but not all of them, but for a large chunk of it we are. Data security, safety, privacy. Once again, this is an area of strength for us. So there's a lot of these areas we want to continue doing. But obviously, we always, I think there's not one of these that we haven't added a area of improvement or growth in. Always can get a little bit better in those. Budget and resources. I think we're pretty frugal and pretty well maximize the funding that's available to us. But areas that we want to do better in. Partnerships is always important. Call them our KETS partners. Work together with us to achieve great things that we couldn't do just alone on a statewide basis. My 30 plus years, we've had significantly more wins. I'd say we're at 35 and one team. We talk about KETS partnerships with folks. A lot of it is the relationships, as you know, in personal life and professional life, and I think we've done that incredibly well, including our relationships with districts. And like I said, nothing's 100% perfect, but once again, in comparison to the other 49 states, we're up there, if not the best, one of the best. Digital learning, another one of the standard gears. Areas of keep on doing these things well. Last month, we spent time on the summative online assessment, and report card's always on our mind. We've identified, once again, areas that we can do better in. Personalized professional learning. It's been there since the beginning. Gets back in 92. Use of space and time. Projected costs, that's an important type of thing, and I may, skip down to the bottom here a little bit and roll it, but we talk about how we get to these numbers, and as I talked about last month, a lot of our numbers, nearly everything, is based upon empirical data that we can really see the spending patterns like the other 49 states can't, and so our numbers are pretty rock solid if you take a look at it. Oops, I just accidentally bounced off of that. Let me get back down there. Clicked on something I didn't mean to click on, so apologize. I gotta scroll down here. Yeah. So pretty rock solid numbers, and we do some education. What is technology? What it isn't, but what it is. Just for folks, some really basics. What's considered enterprise system. We spend a lot of time and energy educating Katie staff on that as well. And why is OET and district staff so interested in technology? Because a lot of times we're held accountable for it if it doesn't go well. So I like we don't want to be involved with it from the beginning. What's the total cost of ownership? So these are real kind of basic things that we cover with folks to educate them. This has been some time in the appendix, all the studies that have been done over the years, recent and past, and some external studies that have been done, recent and past, and surveys that we do, our digital readiness that we do every year. As you can see, the January edition. And I talked about our Board of Education meets here soon, so we'll be sharing that document or this document with them that's based upon the data that we receive from you all. Same kind of data we provide to legislators comes from the data you all provide for our additional budget requests. And this just doesn't show the bits and bytes. The reason I like what we do here, it shows the added value that technology brings to the educational experience for students and the staffs and districts. And just the trends that are going, the move away from basic desktops to more mobile devices, and that continues the path, and help offer assistance that we have there. Other supporting, information that we've had over the years for all the studies that are done. Good number of these are initiated by folks outside the Department of Education. Some simple charts here to educate folks on technology at a high level, and I've used these over the years to help out. Just how governance works and standards in the trust fund. Talked about the KETS fund money and how the offers of assistance work. Some of the laws that are in place. The course of time. This was a 1998, and the data security one. So a good place for all the standards, including the academic standards. And we've talked about some time about the importance of that's a big success of us getting those in place. Some architectural guidelines that we have in place for folks, and just reminding folks with the 5 key things. I just went over this with the KD leadership team. The importance of what kind of things you have to have involved to get a high level data, and always be on a healthy data diet of the things that we collect from districts. This is a new from our cybersecurity kind of things, and we regularly spend time on it. Tons of studies done on this, but just that allows us to add some areas of emphasis to it. The timeline, not to go into detail with the timeline, but definitely will be there. And then the budget is here, and I'll make that a little bit bigger. The computers have always been a big chunk of the budget. Digital learning environment, this based upon empirical data that says that this spending level is actually there. Administrative technology systems, and obviously a shift over the course of time, but we feel good about that empirical data, and as well as the student internet access. You can see these are big numbers. This is annually, and this is over a 6-year period that you're seeing there. And then shared services that we provide at the state level to all districts. And we get the grand total of $430 million and $2.5 billion over a 6-year period. So that's the 2024 to 2030 KETS Master Plan for Education Technology. We'll present that to the board on August 3rd, and I suspect that will go well. And we'll put out a complete document of it after that board meeting. So thanks for being part of that.
Okay, thanks on that. Does anyone have any kind of questions or comments that bubbled up from Go Soapbox that you can tell me about?
No, nothing in Gold Soapbox.
Okay, good. We'll move on to our next topics that involve Dee Dee and Chuck about our data collection and data system. So Dee Dee, I'll let you go first, and then Chuck, you can talk about some of the data collection we have coming up.
Okay, I just have some reminders. For those of you that haven't gotten the emails directly, heads up, school report card's open. It's really open for the school report card safety collection right now, and it allows districts to start entering their collection data. There's quite a bit of collection data required for the school profile report, and that school profile report is due October 1st. It's a statutory requirement, so we can't change that date. So even when the school report card doesn't go out until later than that, the school profile report should still be available in the district board office with signatures by October 1, and that requires all the SBDM signatures, principal and superintendent. And I know it takes time to get that information collected. So just a reminder on that one. The school report card will probably go out later this year. We're thinking like late October, maybe even early November before we go out, just because we've got to do some more standard setting around the accountability work still to do. We don't know anymore. I'm going to switch gears now to the civil rights data collection. We don't know anymore when that collection is going to start. They got all the contacts needed. I think we were still missing a couple districts last I heard, but I think all of that is pretty much done. But that information is being collected, and we should know more soon on the civil rights data collection. And that is not for last year, it's for the prior year. So they're a little behind on that. And that's the Office of Civil Rights that does manage that at the federal level. KD will continue to help with that collection. We do have some new open house sites. So if you haven't been on our open house site, this is a really good time of year to do that. Go to the open house site, click on your district, look and see if all your contacts are correct. If they're not, if you're not the WAPOC, work with your WAPOC to get those updated in the WSA system. Remember, it's not just district data. You can go in there and look at all your school data too. So those contacts are critical to us to make sure that we have the right contacts to reach out to and keep informed throughout the year. So take a look at that. It's also used for school report contacts for the superintendent and the principals. And those should be the current contacts, not the contact as of the year of the school report card. That's a federal requirement. We do have some updates on the data standards. So every year we go through our data standards, make sure they're still current for the Infinite Campus data entry. Those have been updated, so help to communicate that. We did have a question on that one, and we've gotten some responses. I'll just go ahead and pull that up real quick. Let's see, hopefully you'll be able to see my screen shortly, but yep, looks like most of the offices, the districts, administrators, campus administrators take care of that. So we do communicate with them on that, but anything you can do, the CIOs out there to kind of help with that communication, making sure new people are aware that there even are data standards. It's funny because we'll talk to people who are like, well, I didn't know there was a data standard. Those data standards are very clear as far as you do this, this, and this. And if the data doesn't go in right, it's never going to be the quality we need for reporting purposes. So keep that in mind. A couple things for you all to think about that are around the Infinite Campus. We've started communicating, and the Ks are going to help us with this communication in the regional meetings. Martin's with them, but the SFTP delivery mode changed. There is a change in Infinite Campus, how they're doing that. We do have a question on that also, and let me pull that up. If you don't think this impacts you, more than likely you're wrong. Yeah, I think it's going to impact everybody. So, and don't feel bad because it's really new and we're just trying to figure it out. But if you think about the food service and the Mosaic, all that's done through SFTP, so that's going to have to change. Infinite Campus isn't turning off the old way of doing it immediately. We don't know how long that's going to be maintained. We'll know more, hopefully, maybe even later today as far as what they're thinking. But there are going to have to be some changes. It's not a difficult switch. We have communicated the instructions out to Infinite Campus provided on how to make those changes. So just be aware that there is going to have to be some work that does need to be done. I'm also getting ready to send out a message, and it includes a reminder that I'm going to go ahead and tell you all because we've got our next release scheduled for later this month. But with the September release, if you've written any code that has the no lock provision in the code, that's not going to be accepted any longer. So that's got to be updated before the September release. So if you're not getting messages from me, if you are, you probably say I send too many of them. But if you aren't getting them, you might want to reach out because sometimes there is that techie type stuff that somebody else might not realize is important to you. But the Infinite Campus will remove all the no lock and the query hints. So pay attention to that if you've been writing any code you think that might be impactful to you all. So those are a couple things I really wanted to make sure. Now I've switched my page and I've got to get back to what else I've got. But we do have that information coming out. Again, watch for a message from me that'll have that more details on that. We also have training this week. Our beginning of year training, we do trainings 3 times a year. It's not just OET doing trainings. We coordinate this to get the right people in front of them. These trainings are things that you can come in and out of. Might not be you, but it might be somebody else. Help us promote that. Don't feel like they have to give a whole day to training, then come in for the applicable part. We stay on a schedule. Our start times, end times are stay consistent. So do participate in that training. That is on our KSIS training page. So if you don't know about that, KSIS training, search that on Katie's website, it'll come up. And that has the agenda on that. So they are recorded. So if this is a busy time of year, there's never not a busy time of year, but this is a busy time of year. And if somebody can't make it, or you or somebody else participates in a training and says, oh, so-and-so should watch this too, it will be out there. So do take advantage of the opportunities. The other thing that we want to encourage folks to remember is that for high school seniors that graduated last year, or this year earlier, I'm sorry, in May, those transcripts are still free through August. So if we've got high school graduates that are just getting ready to go to college for the first time and they're recent graduates, their high school transcripts are free, but it's really important that counselors or whoever release those by August 30th, because after that, it's about a $4 per transcript cost. So we do want folks to make sure they're paying attention to that. We also had a question about privacy and security, and it's a lot. I will say that I'm one of those people that takes advantage of trainings that have already been done for me versus reinventing the wheel whenever I can. If you don't have a training program on privacy and security, there's some great resources out on the PTech website. You can, you can just search for student privacy ed.gov, and they'll come up, and you've got some online courses on FERPA 101, data ethics, different things like that. And there is a new group of trainings that are coming up August 16th to 23rd and the 30th. A couple of them, the FERPA 101 and 201 is great for just new folks that just kind of need to know basic FERPA. The other one might be good for you or somebody that is involved in procuring new apps. When you're a teacher that wants to use a new app, how do you vet educational technology and transparency for your apps and make sure that they're not collecting things inappropriately and that stuff before you put those in use? So that one is August the 3rd. So 30th. Those trainings are out on our website, so do take a look at those. I think that was all I had to speed through. I think I'll turn it over.
I think I'll add something.
Okay.
If I could, is we're always interested in other states that take a look at statewide approaches for efficiencies and to reduce costs. And I mentioned, North Carolina before, but Delaware has also been one of those states that's taken statewide approaches. And while Kentucky was the first state to do internet to every one of our schools and districts, states like North Carolina and Delaware have also followed that. Now, in the Infinite Campus world, is Nevada has followed us doing statewide, and that was a goal that I would say every state level K-12 CIO has, and they're moving toward that because they see the significant advantage of just not efficiencies and costs, but how the data is defined. You're doing apples to apples, and one of the states that recently joined doing Infinite Campus statewide, they previously had everybody just doing their own thing and realized the inefficiencies of that and the poor quality of data they get with it. They went out for a bid and drove down costs to put forth a statewide student information system, and they selected Infinite Campus. And Nevada's already done that, obviously, and there's another large state that Infinite Campus is in the mix. And that helps Kentucky. We have these other states with statewide approaches because it allows us to work with those states and get some things done, just not for Kentucky, but for these other states as well. They've taken a statewide approach, and Infinite Campus is more likely to do that when an entire state's moving in a direction versus the eaches of every districts trying to approach them to do certain things. So I do think that's a big news for Delaware because Delaware is similar to Kentucky in statewide approaches versus everybody doing their own thing. So that's a good announcement. Chuck, you wanted to share some things about upcoming data collection.
Sure, David. So for, primarily for our new CIOs, and I know we've got a bunch, but actually for anybody that needs just a casual reminder, much of what David has covered today, a huge percentage of what he's covered today, when you talk about expenditure plans, you talk about the master plans, is derived from the data that you submit annually. Okay. When we talk about rebaselining the master plan and empirical data, when we talk about trends, when we talk about goals and action items to improve upon the program, all of that is based upon both the feedback and the data that we get from every district every year. So that being said, we're entering that season, okay, where it's time for the digital readiness window to open, TAR reports to be submitted, and it's time to be thinking about, the end of year top 5, which we look at very, very closely for program improvements. So through our Ketz Field staff, all of you will be communicated with links to the digital readiness survey window opening. If you've got any questions about any of this, obviously lean into your field staff. The criticality of this is just something we can't express enough. But at the same time, we know, especially for the new folks, you may need some help. Digital readiness is pretty well static from a year ago. We've added a few minor tweaks around the areas of digital equity and cyber safety and security. But I just want to impress upon folks that we appreciate the effort you put into the data, because it allows us just to continue to move the program forward, as David likes to say, and pioneer and demonstrate how we are the best in the country at this. So David, that was it on what I'll call data collection season.
Thank you. Mike, did you have anything you want to share with our RFPs? We'll finish after Mike gets finished with going over some of the Go Soapbox questions that we didn't get to, that Dee Dee didn't get to. So I want to finish with any of those. I know we had one about cybersecurity. So Mike, do you have anything you want to share about?
Yeah, real quickly, I'll hit on a couple of things, reminders and awareness. I do want to first say though, David, I think that was an excellent job on doing the recordings to go over the annual operational budget and the master plan. That's one kind of for the archives. I think that's a good go-to for new CIOs, and obviously folks got to pull stuff up and look at it to get the more detail, but I do think that was a good overview. I know whenever you said you was going to do those recordings, I was picturing you in a checkered sweater vest and a pipe and a fireplace in the background. But you done well with those. I think that was a good snapshot overview of those. I do want to mention too, real quickly, with that, we do anticipate and expect the offers of assistance for the upcoming fiscal year to be $21 for ADA. I don't know if we called that out or not, but that does support the $21 per ADA. So just some reminders, we've got the connected user experience, RFP activity, procurement activity and process. Expect that to be posting actually, and so that's continuing to move forward. And so that's obviously a huge initiative for us that folks will want to pay attention to and be prepared as we move forward with that effort. The school report card continues in its procurement process as well. RFP's closed on that, so it's going into the next steps of, and I may have mentioned this in the last webcast, but it's because it was about that same time frame as when it was closing. So that will continue with the process, which is, evaluation, and we'll be continuing to pursue the new contract arrangement and vehicle we'll have in place for a school report card going forward. Do a real quickly mention, I don't know how much we've mentioned this, but there is an effort, procurement activity, which will be associated also with an RFP activity for a professional learning management system, working with Kelly Foster's office on that, I believe. I'm correct and named the right office. So we'll have more information to share about that, and just what districts will want to be aware of with that coming soon. And then I do want to take an opportunity to mention again, just for awareness, we're continuing to pursue the I'll call it a next generation. I'm pretty big on calling anything we're doing as next generation SEEK system, and we're really entering a second round of how we will pursue what that will look like, and the procurement vehicle we will put in place, and how we'll go about putting in a vehicle to put a replacement or a next generation SEEK system in place. And so I just want folks to be aware of that, and especially our vendor partners want to make sure they're aware of that. That's an opportunity coming about to be aware of. We'll continue to work on the next generation K-12 internet. Everybody's aware of that. It's very active, and we're on track again to have that completely transitioned by July 1 of 2024. And we do have backup plans in place if we don't make that date, but it's costly to us in multiple ways that happens. So we're on track, and our goal is to continue to make that July 1 date. And about every district's got to be aware of that to some extent, because we've had a lot of activity going on with that. So just wanted to mention that real quick. I think, David, that covers the items I wanted to hit on.
Thanks, Mike. And we also met with our CATS partners last week, which we do annually.
Yeah.
And we encourage them. One of the best ways they can keep up with is what's going on with CATS, is we're the only state in the country that does what we're doing here today, a monthly webcast, and plus we do a written summary from folks that they can keep up with if they want to do it that way, of the highlights. Like I say, the only state that does that, along with the CIO Summit and our regional field staff. So we really work on trying to keep folks educated. And because the reason I mentioned that to them is the number one thing that all these vendors want is 15 minutes of my time, and I get 10 or 15 of those a day to go over what our top priorities are in the hot projects, and they can just watch this right here. So hopefully what we covered in that video, the operational plan and master plan, helps our CATS partners that also are sending an invite to join this. Let's cover the Go Soapbox questions that we didn't hit upon, that Dee Dee didn't hit upon, because I know one of those is a cybersecurity health check and making sure that we're getting that done. So if we could bring any of the remaining ones up.
The first one up, I brought it up for a quick second right after Chuck talked about it, but for digital readiness survey, you got a few folks that are already saying that they're going to be ready early, and then some others are, saying they're going to wait till September, and the others just don't know yet. So they're starting to think about it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So. Thank you.
And real quick, hey, Dee Dee, real quick. Also, Amy had put out in the chat. It's also the windows are open to start collecting and submitting TAR reports, technology activity reports. I want to make sure everybody understood that, along with the digital readiness survey. So, okay. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the cyber security health check, you got folks that are already done, folks that are getting close to being done, and then you got this poor soul that's out there just hearing about it. So I would encourage that person to reach out to Bob.
Yeah, exactly. I think reach out to me or reach out to your CATS engineer. If this is the first time you've heard about it, maybe you're new. We've mentioned this on previous webcasts, but reach out to your CATS engineer. I've forwarded an email with lots of information about this to you through your CATS engineer. If you have issues with that, go ahead and just send me an email directly. I'd be happy to send you that same information. And just keep in mind, this is a great opportunity for you to interface with your board. And also keep in mind, legally, you can present this information to your board behind closed doors, so it's not public. So I do not want anyone out there to be giving away the keys to the kingdom in a public meeting if you're describing where things have good security and where things have bad security. So it is within your legal rights to do this in a very private setting, and I encourage you to do that versus doing it where there's lots of people who will be taking copious notes.
Is that, did we go through the Go Soapbox questions? I think that's all a minute.
That's all the Go Soapbox.
All right, thank you.
We did add some links to some training things. So if you're not on Go Soapbox and you'd like some of the links I referenced earlier, they're out there in Go Soapbox, either in the discussions or the social Q&A area.
Well, this worked out. And this is probably the timing works out here because I'm getting ready to leave Kentucky and enter Tennessee. So I don't want to be doing a webcast from Tennessee. Is there any other Go Soapbox questions that or comments that we need to hit upon that someone made?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in July, and let me join you remotely. And hope you have a good rest of your July before we begin heading toward the beginning of the school year in August. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.